Well, we are now 20% of the way through this NBA season and we have learned a lot about the Lakers team. Obviously both the good and the bad that have come with it, of which there's definitely been more good in my opinion. Everything from their record, currently being a top 3 team in the Western Conference, having their first full year of Luka Doncic, now having Luka, LeBron, and Austin together, of which has shown plenty of good with it, but there have been a few bad things too. Or I guess more so things they have to clean up if they want to reach their full potential. So we're going to talk about that, go through their offense, defense, role players, star players, everything in between all of that, and we're going to break it all down here. Starting with a basic overview of their offense, defense, and overall net rating from a rating standpoint, they currently rank 7th in offensive rating, having a 118.3 offensive rating, then defensively rank 18th, having a defensive rating of only 115.3, and then from a net rating standpoint, rank in the top 12, having a plus 3.1 net rating, which is very impressive in spite of their 3-point shooting, as they're currently a bottom 5 3-point shooting team in regard to 3-point shots made per game. And yet, they find a way to be a top 7 offense in spite of that. Not only that, but are still the second best team in overall true shooting percentage, having a 62.6% true shooting mark, and in spite of their 3-point shooting, in spite of their sometimes high turnover rates, ranking top 5 in turnovers per game, or rather bottom 5 if you want to say that, they're still a very efficient offense, and again, a lot of it comes down to Luka Doncic, and now the 3 of Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James together. Probably one of, if not the most dangerous trio in the entire league offensively. However, I can't say the same thing for their defense. Not only the 3 of Luka, LeBron, and Austin, but really a majority of their team up until this point. If you're talking about individual defense and pointing to an individual defensive stat, like defensive box plus minus rating for example, they only have 3 main rotation guys that have a plus rating. Pointing to Luka Doncic, which is mainly from his steals per game and defensive playmaking, having a plus 1.2 defensive BPM, then pointing to Marcus Smart, having a plus 0.8 defensive BPM, then for Jackson Hayes having a plus 0.3 rating. Also, I guess if you want to throw in Maxi Kleber, kind of a rotation player for them, though only playing 9 games so far in a total of 105 minutes, and that kind of does it for them. Jake the Arabian nearly being there with a minus 0.1, kind of on the average and neutral defender mark, also pointing to that with Austin Reeves, but overall here they have a lot more negative than positive defensive BPM ratings. Pointing to their worst defensive rotational player, Rui Hachimura, posting a negative 2 flat defensive BPM, then with LeBron now coming back to a negative 1.1 defensive BPM, Dalton Knecht having a negative 1 flat defensive BPM, even DeAndre Ayton, which is more so a combination of his lack of stocks, meaning combined steals and blocks per game as a big, having a negative rating, though I think he's actually been pretty solid. Definitely not saying this is a perfect indictment of their defense and a perfect stat to show it, but overall it does kind of compare with their overall defensive rating, being in the bottom half of the NBA, and simply not being very productive, nor consistent up until this point. And it really does start with the guys they put on the court to begin the game, aka their starting lineup. I mean, ever since LeBron came back, they have been a bottom 5 defense, and definitely not saying it's only from him. That's definitely not the case here, but it really does start with the players they put on the court to start the game to really set the tone for their defense, and it's not been a great tone-setting group. Up until this point, the 5-man combination of Luka, LeBron, Austin, Rui Hachimura, and DeAndre Ayton have posted a defensive rating of 120, which would currently rank dead last in the NBA. On top of that, they have a pretty average offensive rating of 115.1, an overall net rating of negative 4.9 in 106 total possessions up until this point, and now over 100 total minutes together too. So not quite a perfect sample. I think over time they would show some improvement, though I don't think it would be enough to make them a great starting group, especially not on defense, and eventually I think they will have to make a change. And well, talking about that change, I think you know the one that I'd make at this point. If you've been watching my content, I would definitely flip out an offensive-minded player, a guy that currently has the worst defensive BPM on their team, that being Rui Hachimura, for a more defensive-minded player. Somebody like a Marcus Smart, for example, somebody that could balance out their starting lineup, add more defense to it, then add Hachimura to their bench unit to make it more offensive-minded, as their bench unit currently ranks dead last in offensive rating, while their starting lineup ranks in the bottom 3 in defensive rating. And I mean, it's really hard not to point to the 4-man group of Luka, LeBron, Austin, and Rui Hachimura together. Not only the starting group with DeAndre Ayton, but simply looking at the 4-man combination of those guys, They have played 5 games together, 75 total minutes, which again is not a huge sample per se, but have not played well together, having a defensive rating of 122 flat, which gets even worse without Ayton on the court, a net rating of -9.2, even a rather subpar offensive rating of 112.8. It's not been very good on either end of the court, and I think they do need to split them up. I mean, if you do split them up and only look at the two-man groups of Luka and LeBron, LeBron and Austin, or LeBron and Luka, they've all been completely fine. Luka and Austin have a +4.9 net rating, LeBron and Austin have a +3.6 net rating, and even LeBron and Luka have a +2.3 net rating. So the problem is not between those two or three, it's with the guys that they put around them, mainly with Rui Hachimura in my opinion, as they simply need a more defensive-minded player around them, rather than another offensive-minded player that doesn't give them much on defense and actually hurts them a bit on defense too, putting them in tougher defensive roles that they're not meant to take on, take away from what they do offensively, and simply put their team in a weird situation on the court to begin the game. Again, if you're trying to balance out your team, which you definitely should be trying to do, trying to create the best combination of offense and defense within your rotation, which the Lakers currently have the exact opposite of. Again, their starting lineup being bottom 3 on defense but top 3 offensively, then their bench unit being top 3 defensively but bottom 3 offensively. I think there's a pretty obvious change to be made here, and I think we can directly point to it, and already did point to it too. And let me be very clear about that. It's definitely not a punishment or a demotion for Rui Hachimura. If they would look to bring him off the bench, I think it would actually help him out. You know, we've seen him get one shot in a game before, surrounded by the 4 of Luka, Austin, LeBron, and DeAndre Ayton. Oftentimes he becomes an afterthought within their offense, has to take on a matchup that he probably doesn't want to take on and is not meant to take on defensively. I think coming off the bench when Luka does eventually come back, and when they get Marcus Smart back and healthy, would actually be the best for both him and the guys that are currently in their starting lineup too. Really the entirety of their rotation, both offensively and defensively. So no, not a demotion, not me hating Rui Hachimura, not anyone hating him for that fact that thinks he would be a better fit off the bench. It's simply trying to balance out their rotation. Though apart from that, then moving on from negativity with their defense, there's a lot to like about their team and individual players so far. Even the guys that they added to their team, many of which that fans said would not be good, and it's so far been pretty darn good for them, especially pointing to DeAndre Ayton. Up until this point, averaging roughly 16 points per game, over 8 rebounds per game, over 1 block per game, shooting a career high 71.2% from the field, not making a 3-point shot but being very deadly in the mid-range area. In fact, he is currently one of only 2 players in the entire NBA to be shooting at least 55% from less than 5 feet away from the rim, 5 to 9 feet away from the rim, 10 to 14 feet away from the rim, and 15 to 19 feet away from the rim. Actual quick correction, one of only 3 players, the 3 being himself, Nikola Jokic of course, and Donovan Mitchell. But for DeAndre Ayton, from less than 5 feet away from the rim, shooting 77.8% and being top 10 in makes per game from that area of the court, then from 5 to 9 feet away from the rim, shooting 68.6%, kind of that area of the court where he does his low floater and push shot, which has been very effective. Then from 10 to 14 feet away from the rim, shooting 55.2%, making 1 shot per game and attempting nearly 2 of them per game, really the definitive mid-range area of the court, which he has been a top-tier player in the entire league with. Then even from the distant mid-range area, 15 to 19 feet away from the rim, shooting a very impressive 58.3%, which is in the 99th percentile of the entire NBA. And well, unsurprisingly, that's led to the Lakers being the only team in the entire NBA to rank in the top 5 in all 4 categories of less than 5 feet away from the rim, 5 to 9 feet away from the rim, 10 to 14 feet away from the rim, and 15 to 19 feet away from the rim too. Currently ranking first in shots less than 5 feet away from the rim, shooting 72.8%, by far the best. Then from 5 to 9 feet away from the rim, also the best by far, shooting 54.3%, better than the team in second by nearly 5%, in fact over 5%. Then from 10 to 14 feet away from the rim, ranking third, shooting 51.9%. Then from 15 to 19 feet away from the rim, ranking 5th, shooting 48.9%, which again is in large part due to DeAndre Ayton. I mean, I know we talk a lot about Luka, LeBron, and Austin offensively, and rightfully so. Luka is currently leading the entire NBA in scoring per game, but I don't think their offense will be where it's currently at. how much more dynamic and versatile it's become compared to last season without DeAndre Ayton. The combination of his lob threat ability at the rim, his dump off ability at the rim, finishing ability around the rim, but then his little floater game from that 5 to 9 feet area from the rim, and the mid-range shot too. That's been a big part of it and an often overlooked part of it too in my opinion. So definitely a great thing to point to with that, with the combination of DeAndre Ayton being added to their offense and simply their entire offense as a whole, it's been pretty good in my opinion. But then finishing up with something that's not been so great and something they do need improvement with, I would simply point to their athletic ability. Up until this point, they have been a bottom 5 team in fast break points per game, which has been partially mitigated by the return of LeBron. Since LeBron came back, they're in the kind of average part, ranking 15th in fast break points per game, even at the 25 fast break points in LeBron's return when he did play in that Utah game. But overall, it's not been very good, even apart from the fast break points and simply their ability to run in transition. I'd point to their athletic ability on defense. Again, not very many versatile, switchable defenders in their team, not many guys that are even defensive minded to begin with. Even their few defensive-minded players like Marcus Smart isn't particularly very athletic and doesn't really stand out that much in that regard, and many of their current athletic players are not really playable in my opinion. One of which, a guy like Adu Thero, not saying that he's not definitively playable, but simply is not in the rotation and is not playing within it, is a guy that's relatively unproven. Then a guy like Vanderbilt, also out of the rotation. Even a relatively athletic guy like Bronny, borderline unplayable and pretty much can't help them out right now. That's another flaw for them. Many of their rotation is not that athletic, is not defensive minded, and that definitely shows up in their defense and ability to turn their defense into offense. But I think they'll do it for our kind of overview of the Lakers 25% of the way through the NBA season, reviewing their offense, defense, starting lineup, rotation, flaws, strengths, and everything that we talked about in this video. So with that in mind, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the stats I pointed to, the lineup combinations I pointed to, what's been good, what's not been good, or maybe something I didn't mention? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day or night.